April 8, 2024, News Report 1. The earthquake in Hualien, Taiwan, has lasted for more than 132 hours. Currently, it has resulted in 13 deaths, 1146 injuries, and 6 people still missing. Among the missing, 5 people disappeared on the Shikadang Trail in Taroko National Park. Rescue personnel transported heavy machinery into Taroko National Park on April 8 to expedite the search and rescue process. A team of 7 Turkish drone rescuers arrived in Taiwan on April 6 with equipment to collaborate with Taiwanese rescue personnel in the search. April 8 marks the first working day after the earthquake in Hualien. Despite multiple damaged roads, rescue operations have commenced. Due to damaged buildings and road traffic controls, there is congestion in the city area. The Hualien County government stated that over a dozen buildings and bridges in the city area were damaged and posed a danger, leading to traffic controls being implemented. The earthquake caused multiple rockfalls and collapses along the Suhua Highway, which has been interrupted. Engineers are working overnight to clear and repair the road. As of the evening of April 7, single-lane traffic has been restored, with traffic allowed from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., and 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., and closed at night. The Taiwan Ministry of Health and Welfare's Relief Fund has been accepting donations since April 4, raising 140 million new Taiwan dollars so far. News Report 2. According to Kyodo News, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will begin a 7-day visit to the United States on April 8, which is a very long visit. On April 10, Fumio Kishida will conclude his visit to the United States in Taiwan, also for 7 days, which is also a very long visit. On April 10, Fumio Kishida will hold talks with U.S. President Biden at the White House to discuss strengthening U.S.-Japan defense cooperation, joint development of defense equipment, and modifying the command structure of the self-defense forces and U.S. forces stationed in Japan. Fumio Kishida will also hold a trilateral summit with Biden and Philippine President Marcos to discuss China's activities in the South China Sea. The summit will emphasize the applicability of the U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty to Philippine activities. According to the Financial Times, China's actions against the Philippines may have reached the threshold for invoking the U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty. The U.S. believes China needs to reassess its strategy, or it will face serious risks of backlash. During his time in the U.S., Fumio Kishida will also address both houses of Congress and exchange views with local residents in North Carolina. Biden has also invited Fumio Kishida to visit the U.S. again in July to attend a trilateral summit with the U.S., Japan, and South Korea. News Report 3. According to the Financial Times, defense ministers from Australia, the UK, and the US held talks on April 8 to discuss Japan's participation in the second pillar of AUKUS. AUKUS has 2 pillars. The first is to provide nuclear-powered attack submarines to Australia, and the second involves the development of high-tech and military technologies such as artificial intelligence, quantum technology, advanced network technology, hypersonic capabilities, and electronic warfare. Japan is preparing to join the second pillar. U.S. Ambassador to Japan Emmanuel last week wrote in the Wall Street Journal that Japan is about to become the first new partner to join the second pillar of AUKUS. The U.S. government is actively promoting Japan's participation in AUKUS, but Australia and the UK still have some concerns, possibly involving some conditions. In addition, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern stated on December 20 last year that New Zealand will also study joining AUKUS. News Report 4. According to Kyodo News, the Japan Coast Guard announced on April 6 that 2 Chinese Coast Guard ships entered the waters around the Diaoyu Islands on the afternoon of April 5 and left on April 6. These 2 Chinese Coast Guard ships were following a Japanese fishing boat at the time. It was also reported that the Japan Coast Guard also spotted 2 other Chinese Coast Guard ships, one of which was equipped with a machine gun. Since the beginning of this year, Chinese government vessels have entered the waters around the Diaoyu Islands for 9 days, and considering the consecutive appearances in adjacent areas, Chinese government vessels have been present in the waters around the Diaoyu Islands for 107 consecutive days. News Report 5. Voice of America reported that last weekend, the United States, Japan, Australia, and the Philippines conducted joint military exercises in the South China Sea. At the same time, the Southern Theater Command of the People's Liberation Army conducted a so-called Joint Sea and Air Combat Readiness Patrol in the same area. On April 6 and 7, the U.S., Australia, and Japan conducted joint maritime exercises, including anti-submarine exercises, in the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone of the South China Sea. This is the first formal joint exercise of the 4 countries in the South China Sea. The defense ministers of the 4 countries issued a joint statement, stating that the joint exercise was aimed at responding to the increasing military threats posed by China to the Philippines and demonstrated the unity of the 4 countries. It is worth noting that it is very rare for the 4 countries to issue a joint statement during military exercises. On the other hand, the Southern Theater Command of the People's Liberation Army posted a brief message on WeChat stating that on April 7, a joint sea and air combat readiness patrol was organized in the waters of the South China Sea, but did not disclose the specific number of warships or types of aircraft. Additionally, a spokesperson for the Philippine Coast Guard said on Twitter that on April 4, 2 Chinese Coast Guard ships harassed Philippine fishing boats in the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone in the South China Sea, pretending to fire guns and water cannons to intimidate fishermen. Philippine President Marcos has called on China to avoid more collisions and use of water cannons in the South China Sea through dialogue, emphasizing the Philippines' willingness to dialogue with Chinese leaders to prevent further deterioration of the situation. At the same time, Marcos hopes that the just concluded joint military exercise between the U.S., Japan, and Australia can reduce incidents related to China in the South China Sea. News Report 6. The Israeli police announced on April 7 that all ground forces had been withdrawn from the Gaza Strip, leaving only a unit called the 933rd Brigade. During the 6-month Israel-Hamas war, Israel deployed up to 5 divisions, each with over 10,000 troops, totaling more than 60,000 soldiers, to the Gaza Strip. However, at the end of February, the Israeli Defense Forces withdrew most of their forces, leaving only 2 divisions, the 98th and 162nd. Chief of Staff of the Israeli Defense Forces, Halevi, stated on April 7 that despite the withdrawal from Gaza, the war against Hamas continues, with one of the most urgent tasks being the return of hostages to Israel. Israeli Defense Minister Gantz also stated that Israel's withdrawal from Gaza was to prepare for military operations in Rafah. However, a spokesperson for the U.S. National Security Council, Cox, stated that Israel withdrew from Gaza because they were tired and needed rest, which does not mean there will be new military action. With the war ongoing, especially after 7 international staff members of the charity World Central Kitchen were killed by Israel on April 2, Israel is facing pressure from Western allies such as the United States. The Biden administration has repeatedly urged Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu not to conduct ground operations in Rafah. Netanyahu stated on April 7 that Israel is prepared to reach a ceasefire agreement to ensure the release of 130 hostages held by Hamas, but at the same time, emphasized that Israel will not yield to Hamas' extreme demands. Biden expressed his pleasure at this. News Report 7. New Zealand's Immigration Minister Stanford announced on April 7 that from that day onwards, the requirements for work visas would be tightened, including the addition of an English requirement and a reduction in the continuous detention requirement from 5 years to 3 years. The New Zealand government introduced the Employer Accreditation Work Visa in 2021, replacing the Essential Skills Work Visa that had been in place for many years. Foreigners applying for work visas must first obtain employer accreditation. New Zealand currently has a population of 5.1 million, and after the pandemic, the number of immigrants has increased sharply, with 173,000 immigrants last year, close to the historical record. The influx of immigrants has exacerbated inflation and housing demand. The New Zealand government believes this situation is not sustainable. Stanford stated that the New Zealand government's focus would be on retaining high-skilled immigrants and filling positions with labor shortages, such as secondary school teachers. News Report 8. China's real estate company Shimao Group announced on April 8 that the construction bank had applied for Shimao Group's bankruptcy in the High Court of Hong Kong on April 5, demanding repayment of 1.57 billion Hong Kong dollars in debt. This is the third Chinese real estate company to be applied for bankruptcy after Evergrande and Country Garden. Shimao Group was founded in 1994 by founder Su Rongmao and was once among the top 200 on the rich list. The group went public in Hong Kong in 2006, with its initial development projects mainly concentrated in Shanghai and later expanded nationwide. By 2020, Shimao Group had become one of China's top 10 real estate companies. However, as the situation in China's real estate market worsened, Shimao Group's financial situation became extremely tight, with losses of 48.5 billion renminbi in 2 consecutive years, 2021 to 2022. According to crystalline statistics, Shimao Group's real estate sales revenue last year was only 42.8 billion renminbi, ranking 34th. In July 2022, Shimao Group failed to pay off its $1 billion foreign debt, resulting in a total default of its $11.7 billion foreign debt. As of the end of 2022, Shimao Group's total liabilities were 536.7 billion renminbi, with total assets of 616.2 billion renminbi. Although it is not yet insolvent, its book assets do not cover substantive debts. Shimao Group had previously negotiated with creditors for 18 months and proposed a $6 billion offshore debt restructuring plan to creditors last December. However, Deutsche Bank expressed dissatisfaction with the restructuring plan and is preparing to file for bankruptcy against Shimao Group in Hong Kong. The news of bankruptcy affected Shimao Group's stock listed in Hong Kong, which fell 18% on April 8, closing at 30 cents. News Report 9. According to the report by First Financial, the Guangzhou Housing Provident Fund Management Center will implement a new policy starting April 9, allowing 2 or more people to jointly apply for a Housing Provident Fund loan to purchase a self-occupied house, with the maximum limit raised to 1.2 million. In addition, loans for purchasing one-star green buildings can also be increased to 1.2 million, and if purchasing a one-star green building, the loan can be increased by an additional 10%. However, this policy is not very helpful to the market, as the biggest problem in the current Chinese real estate market is confidence, not purchasing power. News Report 10. Former U.S. President Trump's campaign team announced that Trump held a fundraising event at former Treasury Secretary Paulson's home on April 6, with 117 guests raising $50 million, twice as much as Biden's previous fundraising. At the time, Biden attended the fundraising event with former Presidents Clinton and Obama, raising $25 million. According to the Washington Post, one seat at Trump's fundraising event was priced at $814,000. The event was mainly organized by Paulson, demonstrating Trump's close relationship with Wall Street. News Report 11. According to Swedish public television and the Gothenburg Post, the Swedish government has decided to expel Chinese journalist Chen Shuifei from the country, citing her long-standing activities that threaten Sweden's national security. Chen Shuifei married a Swedish man in 2005 and gave birth to a son in Sweden. She created the Nordic Green Post, an online media outlet, and served as its editor-in-chief, as well as the head of the Sweden-China Center. A report in 2023 indicated that many of the news articles in the Nordic Green Post came from Chinese official media, Chinese institutions, and Chinese United Front organizations in Sweden. Chen Shuafei received remuneration from the Chinese embassy for publishing these articles and cooperated with Chinese intelligence officials to organize activities in support of the Chinese government, such as a Xinjiang photo exhibition. In addition to her role as a journalist, Chen Shuafei has led several visits by Chinese government and business delegations to Sweden and attempted to arrange visits by Chinese delegations to Swedish government departments. Last October, the Swedish security police arrested Chen Shuafei under the Special Control of Certain Foreigners Act and detained her ever since. On October 16 last year, the Swedish Immigration Service decided to expel Chen Shuafei and ban her from entering Sweden for life. Chen Shuafei appealed, but in late February this year, the Immigration Appeals Court ruled that the government should confirm the Immigration Service's decision. On April 4 this year, the Swedish government rejected Chen Shuafei's appeal, and she is about to be deported to China. News Report 12. According to Xinhua News Agency, an alarming case occurred in Feixiang District, Handan City, Hebei Province. Three 13-year-old junior high school students brutally killed their classmate Wang Ziyao on March 10 and buried his body in a vegetable greenhouse. Local police arrested the three junior high school students on March 11. After approval by the Supreme Procuratorate, the procuratorial organs determined that these three students were over 12 years old when they committed the crime, although they were not yet 14 years old, but because their intentional murder was extremely heinous, they should be held criminally responsible. This is the second case within a month in which minors under 14 years old have been approved for criminal responsibility. Prior to this, a 13-year-old boy in Tongwei County, Dingxi City, Gansu Province, committed a similar crime, killing an 8-year-old girl neighbor in September 2022. The Supreme Procuratorate approved prosecution and the trial began on February 4 this year at the Dingxi City Intermediate People's Court.